All right, what's going on, guys? My name is Nick Abraham, and between Leapbird and Cleverly, we send over 4 million cold emails a month, over 100,000 LinkedIn InMails a month, and do over 75,000 cold calls every single month for more than 1,000 active B2B clients. And today, I'm going to break down exactly how we use competitor page followers to generate leads and appointments for our clients. So let's get right into it. So what exactly is this? It's basically just scraping the followers of a company page on LinkedIn and then using that for your lead list in your outreach. We actually invented this in like 2022. We were probably like the first people that ever did this and sold it actually as a service. We scrapped that way early on, but now there's a lot of people out there that do this. And it is honestly one of the easiest playbooks to roll out and get leads going, even if you don't have a super hot validated offer with a ton of social proof and product market fit. So it is one of the ones that we love to push our clients on because it is just a simple one to get them results. Let's talk about it. And here's actually a funny photo of one of the YouTube videos where I talked about this 2 years ago. It's a cringe face, but you get the point. What does this play exactly? You're just finding a LinkedIn company page, you're scraping his followers, you're filtering it down to actually make sure they match your ICP, and then reach out using contextual callouts, basically saying the outreach, like, hey, I saw that you're following X on LinkedIn and thought it made sense to reach out because we do Y. And that's basically it. So how does it actually work on the back end? On Sales Navigator, there's actually a filter that says following your company, and you can turn that on. And right now I'm on my company page, Leapbird. So it shows me everyone that is following my company page. But what people have done now is they'll get what are called avatars and they'll put it on whatever page you indicate it towards. And then they'll put this filter on, which allows you to then see everyone that is following that company page. And then they scrape the list. But there's a couple of issues that come along with it, which is why it's not super scalable. If you just try to move your profile today to another person's company page and then scrape it from Sales Navigator, a lot of times Sales Navigator doesn't recognize that. Usually you need like a fresh avatar that has no history on it and then add it to a profile or add it to a page before you can scrape it. And even then, there's still some limitations we'll talk about. But the provider I would use to scrape these leads is from Nico. It's called following.co. It's a little funny. So if you want to zoom in and look at, that's the one I would use. I've seen them in the last quarter or so delivered consistently and actually have a really good process behind it. There's a lot of other providers that do this, but like they're just flaky. And to be completely honest, like we were also not a great service provider at it as well, because there's just a lot of tiny little things that pop up that kind of make it a hard service to deliver on. Either way, some things that you do need to watch out for is, like I mentioned, switching of profiles into another account sometimes doesn't trigger the actual change. And so when you click following your company, it doesn't actually show the new company they put it at. And so sometimes they'll scrape data that is from the original company, not the new company that you set it at. And so when you run your outreach, you may see some people say, hey, dude, I have no idea what this means. So that's just something to keep an eye out for, and then maybe flag to the provider if you see that. The other thing I see too is because you're asking the vendor to do it, you're saying, hey, scrape all the followers that follow this account and have this industry, this title, and this company side. And that sounds like a good idea in theory, but it's actually not. It's because it's not real-time flexibility. So if a company page has like 10,000 followers and you say, hey, I only want to find the SaaS founders that have more than 50 employees that had a previous experience as a sales rep, whatever it is, right? That list is going to be super tiny because of the filters you applied. And you kind of have to know how to split that search up to get the optimal amount of contacts that actually fit your criteria. So the correct way to do it, in my opinion, and what we've found success a lot of times doing, is asking the provider to just scrape the entire follower list and then using filters on your own to actually filter it and filtering down the big export. And that'll allow you to get the maximum amount of contacts to be able to do the outreach. And I find that to be better because a lot of times you'll see yourself win when you just do more volume. And so the thing to keep in mind though is sometimes like if you scrape someone like QuickBooks or even like ZoomInfo, they have 250 to 500,000 followers. That's a lot. Whenever you use any provider, it's going to cost you a small fortune. And those examples, whenever they have a huge following, I would say above 50,000, don't scrape the entire thing, actually give it a couple criteria to work with. And then they usually have enough for you to have a sizable list. When you're filtering on your side, what you can do to keep it simple is just use Google Sheets to create a filter inside of there and just go through the titles and say, hey, these are the titles that match my ICP. Same thing on the industry. You could do that. Or you could put it to Clay and write a little simple prompt to say, hey, these are all the data points I have. This is my ICP. Let me know if it makes sense or not. And then have Clayagent run on it. either way works. I probably would just do the Google Sheet thing because it's quicker and faster and cheaper. But sometimes if the list is super hard to filter through and you're not really used to that process, then I would probably use ClayJet. Now that you actually have the data, let's talk about how to run this play. And I actually talked about this over a year ago. This video is about to be 2 years. How to actually run this to actually close clients really quickly. So the first one is if you actually pull a competitor. So in this video that I posted on my channel that you can find somewhere, we were actually hitting the followers of one of the larger agencies in our space called Science. And we were hitting other outbound agencies. And back then we were doing pay-per lead and nobody else is doing that. And so our outreach script is super simple. Hey, I saw that you're following Science on LinkedIn. Thought it made sense because we do what they do, but on a pay-per-lead model. Would you be interested in speaking? And when we ran this in the early days of our agency, I'm pretty sure this is how we acquired our first 30 clients. And it works because they're aware of the problem, they're solution aware, and you're not educating them from scratch. And so it was phenomenal to work and do at scale. And it's funny now because we've come full circle since Libra has gotten bigger and Cleverly has gotten bigger, that people will now run this play on us, which I just find funny. That's one way of doing it, literally calling out who they're following and then making sure that you put in your value prop of what makes you different from whoever you're comparing yourself to, and then asking if they're interested in speaking. The other one is different. It's more like intent-based ecosystem targeting. So what I mean by this is, let's say you work with a lot of tools. So like my stupid example I like to use is if you're a CPA, you use QuickBooks and you use Xero, and you could target people that follow them on LinkedIn as a way of outreach. Or if you're like a cold email agency, you could scrape the followers of SmartRead, Instantly, and Clay. And then what you need to do is just like filter out the people that are technically your competitors. Think about QuickBooks. A lot of people that follow QuickBooks on LinkedIn could be CPAs. And if you're a CPA, it would make sense to pitch your services to a CPA. And that's a bit to keep in mind. And then the outreach you can do, it just depends if it's a tool or if it's like some kind of service provider or something like that. Like the angle you want to come in with is, hey, I saw that you're following Smart Lead. I'm curious, are you getting the most use out of it? We've launched over 1,000 B2B campaigns using Smart Lead and generate thousands of leads. We'd be happy to take a look at what you're doing. Something like that. You want to basically just like stack expertise, stack and see if like they get the most value out of it and come in with a value add. That's the thought behind like the second method, but either method works. I think if you're a little nervous to call out your competitors directly like this, I would avoid it. This does get, I would say, a little bit more backlash per se, because you'll have like founders that you're trying to steal and take food off of their table. It's probably not something that I recommend to a lot of people anymore, but it is something to consider. One thing that's really important though is to make sure you filter out employees, because that's how you get in trouble a lot. Make sure that if you're trying to scrape the followers of ZoomInfo, that you say that the current company is not ZoomInfo and the past company is not ZoomInfo. So you can filter out employees of ZoomInfo. And then when it comes to channel strategy, like what actually works and thinking about how to implement this in your outbound campaigns. So once you actually get that list from Nico, from following, or whichever provider you use, you get the LinkedIn profile URL, and then you want to enrich that for email first. And if you have the email, push it into a Smart Lead campaign, run volume there. I find that email is the easiest one to scale, and it works really good with these contextual callouts. If no email, then check to see if that LinkedIn profile has an open profile status. If so, send them an InMail. And if they don't have an open profile, then you can just send them an automated LinkedIn connection request using HeyReach. And then the copy frameworks, this is what I use, right? The direct competitor or the intent-based tool angle to kind of run it out. So if you want our team to actually implement this playbook, plus the dozen of others that we run every day for over 1,000 B2B clients, feel free to book a call with us at Libra.io, or we'll see if it's a fit. And if you just want the blueprint, we put together 10 other playbooks just like this one with the exact copy, targeting strategy, and tech stack we use internally. And there's a simple opt-in below where you can download it and steal everything. But that's it for this video.